Welcome to another episode of Wire2Wire Sports Podcast. This is football week, ladies and gentlemen, and we are ready. Episode 152, college football week one reactions, week two preview. We got the NFL week one preview, plus our awards and UFC 293 tonight. We have a lot to get into. Let me introduce the two men that are going to help me break it down for you tonight. In the upper left corner, I got Kent State's own, Cleveland's own. Actually, you know what? I got to stop at Kent State's own because I wouldn't be proud of that university after the way their football team played. But we got college Cottrell.
You know, it's unfortunate, but I think we are. I think Kent is the worst team in the FBS this season. So, going to be a lot of growing pains this year without the head coach from last year. But I'm ready to talk about some more college football though outside of them. So I'm hyped.
In the upper right corner, I got Scholastic Shally, Uncle Shally, but more importantly, a fellow champion. How you feeling tonight, Shally?
Still cherishing the taste of victory, my friend. It was a good night.
It was a great night. It was a great night. We got a lot to get into today. My voice is kind of hoarse. I was screaming a lot last night. I'm a little bit weird. I get real into the game, EA Sports. But the show must go on, so I do not mind. I am fired up. We got football. We got to address week one of the college football season. Not week zero, week one of the college football season. So before we get into some other, we're going to talk about Colorado. We're definitely going to talk about Colorado. But before we get into Colorado, I would like to ask you, what team do you think was the biggest disappointment from week one? Cottrell. Hey, we'll get there. It can't be that easy, but Cottrell.
Mine is also pretty easy. I'm going to go with Clemson. After seeing the Clemson and Duke game, that Clemson team was 100% not ready. That team wasn't ready for that game whatsoever. The one touchdown that they did score was off of a muffed punt from that Duke team. And so if it wasn't for that, we might not have even seen that Clemson team get on the scoreboard. And that's a team that's really coming into the season. I know none of us picked them to go to the college football playoff, but their expectations are always through the roof. And for all intents and purposes here, their season's over. Like, I get it. They can run the table in the ACC and, really get back on the map and get in the swing of things. But I don't know how you can see that coming after that kind of performance against a Duke team that's not considered one of the top four teams in the conference. So for me, it's Clemson. Their season's really over before it really began. And so I got to go with Clemson here.
Shally, is it the same? Is it that easy for both of you guys?
I mean, that's the super duper obvious one. I think the other one for me is LSU, obviously. They looked great for about 7 minutes and then completely and utterly imploded and just got dog tracked the rest of the game by Florida State. I think they have a lot to fix. They have a lot to fix if they want to be serious SEC contenders. They better figure it out real quick. And I think the more concerning thing seems like there's a lot of tension between Brian Kelly and that team already. And I think, you look at the effort in that game, a lot of those guys kind of rolled over. That's a little concerning for me if I'm a head coach of a team that, potentially has college football playoff, aspirations, playing in, if not the second best conference in the country. I think there's some issues behind the scenes there in LSU.
Well, that's fine. I mean, one of my biggest disappointments was Ohio State's offense. I mean, 23-3 versus Indiana. Yuck. I'm kidding, Cottrell. I'm just busting chops. I'm trying to get a reaction. You're giving me nothing. That's okay. You go to the two obvious ones. I'll give a third one just for the heck of it. South Carolina was a huge disappointment to me. I was excited to watch them go against UNC. I thought they would put up a better fight. They did not. They did not look good. Spencer Rattler started the game off accurate. Near the end of the second quarter, early third quarter, he missed like 6 straight passes. As an overall, North Carolina looked like the much better football team. and more prepared football team. I thought South Carolina would roll off of their momentum from last year. They did not. So that's a couple disappointing teams. I don't want to say surprise. You know what? Let's say surprise. What team looked better than you expected them to look? And I say it that way because I feel like me and Cottrell both picked Colorado as our super dog. I don't know if I gave them a chance to win the football game. I thought it would be close. I think Cottrell thought they would win based off our bet. Looks like I'll be driving a cheesesteak out to Ohio. That's okay. I'm good with that. I want to see Cottrell anyway. But what team looked better than you expected them to?
For me, I won't say Colorado because I actually did pick Colorado to win on the money line. Coast to coast, I said I thought they were going to win the game outright. The one team that looked better to me than advertised was that Oregon State team. DJ Uiagalelei, he looked exactly like, that 5-star kid that went out there and performed against that Notre Dame team in his first ever college start. He was very impressive, and San Jose State had gotten kind of a warm-up game against USC, and they looked better, honestly, against that USC team than they did against Oregon State. So for me, the big one was Oregon State, and not only Oregon State, but DJ at the quarterback position looking every bit of the 5-star kid that he came into college as.
Shao, what team stood out to you?
I think Oregon State's a good one, and I think that Cottrell hit on the major point there of DJ. DJ looked like he was playing free without the weight of expectations in the world on his shoulders at Clemson. It looked like the kid that started that Notre Dame game his first year there. But I'm going to stay in the same game that I went to before. I'm going to go with Florida State. I think we all had high hopes and maybe expectations for them. But I think they surpassed them for me. I mean, I think if you look at that game, I don't know how you can consider them a college football playoff contender. I think they are the absolute best team in the ACC, especially when you factor in what Clemson looked like. I think they have to be the favorite to come in or to come out of the ACC. I don't think they're not going to be favored in the game the rest of the year. I think there's a decent chance that they finish undefeated. And if they do, then they're going to be in the top 4. So, I mean, they in theory might take a spot of that scenario we talked about earlier of, maybe a 1-loss Big Ten team getting in, non-Big Ten champion winner getting in, or even a 1-loss or a 1-loss Pac-12 or Big 12 champion. Could become very interesting. I think Florida State looked great. I think Florida State, it backed up, all the lofty expectations they had coming into the season.
My answer is simple. It's Utah. I think that Utah coming in with a 3rd-string quarterback. Let's just start with the defense, right? Their defense held Florida to less than 1 yard per carry, sacked Graham Mertz 5 times, had an interception, recovered a fumble. Their defense, up until the wee end of the game, allowed 8 points to Florida, but held them to 3 points the entire game. Utah's defense looked great. It was interesting to see. They were one of my biggest surprises. No one said Colorado, so we got to bring them up now. We didn't say Colorado. I don't want to say I was that surprised, right? I've said in the preseason that I think TCU's super overrated. They lost way too much. They're being rated that high because they were just in the national championship last year. And I think Colorado's a good football team. I said they were a year away. I didn't think they'd win 7 games this year. After watching that TCU game, watching Colorado, see, there's still issues on the team, but man, got to give Coach Prime credit where credit's due. He said he was coming, and he wasn't lying. I didn't expect him to go in the TCU and win that football game. I thought it would be close. If you asked me who I thought was going to win the game, I probably would have told you TCU. But man, that team as a whole, offensively, and am I crazy to say the best player in the country right now is Travis Hunter? He is unbelievable playing both sides of the football. I don't think it's sustainable what they're doing with him. I don't think you can play 100 snaps a game. I just don't think you're going to get hurt. You can't do that. But Man, that Colorado team, we got to talk about that. Got to bring up Coach Prime. Got to talk about what they did.
I mean, I think the biggest thing with Travis Hunter is that, I fully understand that this is now he's on this huge stage, being in the spotlight of, playing 130 snaps in a game. But the one thing that a lot of people don't realize is that he was doing it last year and it was sustainable for him. Now, I'm not saying every single game he can go out there and play 150 snaps and be perfectly fine headed into the next week. But I do think you're going to consistently see him at or a little bit over 100 snaps every game, because he's shown last year he has the ability to play like that. And I get it; it's a higher conference level at this level, but I think he's fully prepared to go out there and play that much. And because you saw it out there was never a time in the game, even in that fourth quarter, where it was like, oh man, Travis Hunter, he's gassed here, or he doesn't have enough in him. I think what Colorado is doing offensively is very smart. When they need a big play, things like that, you can afford to take them off the field, go 22 personnel where you got two other receivers other than him out there on the field and let him get some rest that way. But he played every snap at corner, so you're going to always see him running out there on defense. Now, I do think, if any part gets limited, it will be that offensive side, but I fully expect Travis Hunter to be at 100 plus snaps every game this year, unless it's a blowout one way or the other.
Gio, appreciate the stars. Thank you. Appreciate that. Gio also said this, and it's not one of our preview games, but Nebraska could bring Colorado down to earth on Saturday.
Did you watch Nebraska play last week?
I guess we'll get into that. I think Nebraska beats them. We'll talk about that. I have them as one of my picks. I think Nebraska is going to run all over them. Colorado cannot stop the run. It was very evident that the trenches in the line, even Shedeur Sanders got sacked 5 times. That offensive line didn't look good. You got to understand the skill position players on Colorado looked incredible. Dylan Edwards, Travis Hunter, Shedeur Sanders, they look great. The lines did not look good, and I'm telling you right now, call me crazy, I think Nebraska beats them this week. And I think they're going to run the ball down. Matt Rhule is a very good football coach, and he is going to have that team prepared to play Colorado this week. Colorado's 2.5-point favorite. I think Nebraska wins that football game.
Well, I mean, if Nebraska does go in there and win that football game, then, I mean, you're back to maybe winning the bet with Cottrell. But that being said, I don't think Hunter can continue to play 100 snaps a game. And I do agree with Cottrell. If anything gets cut back, it's going to be offense. I look back at how Michigan used Charles Woodson his senior year, the year he won the Heisman, and it started out the same way. He was playing a ton. They put a bunch of packages in for him offensively. And as the year went, they started using him in bigger spots and cut him back because he was just exhausted, and he's admitted to it. I just think it's unrealistic, and honestly, I don't think it's fair to him. If he wants to continue to do it and he says he can go, he can go. I get all that. It's probably going to be hard for them to take him out of the game. But that being said, for his, welfare, to play 130 snaps a game, which is going to be, a way more physical schedule than he played last year down at Jackson State. I don't know how realistic it is. I would love to see him to be able to do it and see where he ends up at the end of the year. I don't think we're going to see it, though. I think you're going to see by the end of the year, you're going to cut it back. Unless they get in games like Cottrell said, where they're either blowing people out or getting blown out and they rest him. I think that's the only way it continues all the way through week 13. But as far as Nebraska goes, I guess. I mean, if you watch that game last week, I don't know how anybody can be confident. They scored on a trick play, and that was like one of 2 times or 2 or 3 times they crossed midfield. I don't know. Nebraska lost a lot too in the portal. I don't know how much the physical, advantage in the trenches is going to be for Nebraska. I think it's going to be a little bit better. I don't think it's going to be the TCU level. I don't know how well Nebraska's defense is going to stack up to the spread offense that, Colorado is going to run. It's going to be very interesting. I won't be surprised at all if Colorado wins that game after watching Nebraska play. They were not impressive against a very middle of the road Minnesota team.
Well, to be fair, Colorado is favored. So you being surprised at them winning, you're supposed to be more surprised if Nebraska wins that football game. I think Nebraska's defense looked good. I think that they look good enough.
Minnesota.
It's fair. It's fair. I look at that game and I see Nebraska being able to run the football. And I think Nebraska is going to run the football, and I think they're going to win the football game. I think they're going to control tempo. It's one of my picks this week. It's also a huge letdown game for Colorado after winning that game at TCU.
I'll give you that one, but I think home opener is
correct. Yeah.
Well, I think people forget like late '90s how good Colorado was, and Boulder was a place you didn't want to go to play a game, and that's how it's going to be Saturday. That place is going to be sold out. It's going to be packed. It's going to be loud. Playing in elevation. I don't know. I'm not saying Nebraska can't win the game. I just didn't see anything in their game last week that would make me feel any kind of confident in picking them.
I'll put it to you this way, and I want to say this name right now. I want you to be ready for it. Gabe Ervin Jr. is going to run for 150 yards and 2 touchdowns, and Nebraska's going to win that football game. But we'll get it. Well, obviously, I could be right. I could be wrong. We'll find that out. We'll find that out now. Any other things week 1 we'd like to talk about? Any other big games we want to recap?
Gio just brought up an interesting one. That game was Texas Tech went up to Wyoming and found out that was I think they were 15, 16.5 point favorites going up there, and they got a big L coming over from Wyoming. So that was a surprise.
And the other one definitely has to be Baylor losing to a D2 team. It's tough out here. Any given Saturday for a reason. So Baylor losing, I think it was Texas State was ultimately who they ended up losing to. Again, whatever aspirations they had in the Big 12, you can basically kiss those goodbye because it's just not happening this year.
I think it goes back to the point we brought up too. The Big 12 is an absolute 2-horse race, and that's it. You at this point, I think you'd have to slot Colorado in probably the 3 or 4 spot, but
they're still Pac-12 this year.
No, Pac-12, that's right. So you don't even have them. Everything below Texas and Oklahoma is not good. We saw TCU, what they lost. Baylor lost to a D2 team after all the guys they lost the last 2 years. I think it makes the Big 12 more complicated if I'm being honest, because I think if you come out of there with 1 loss, and if it's in the Big 12, that conference is not going to be rated high this year. It's going to be a very, very down year for that conference.
Well, Texas State put on an absolute clinic over Baylor. I'll put it to you that way. 300 yards, 3 touchdowns from their quarterback. Texas State put on a clinic. That Baylor Bears team looked awful. My man Billy talking about the survivor pool. Billy, I'll get in. I promise you. I'm in. All right. Don't beat me up. Looking for me. Notre Dame versus NC State. We're going to talk about that. Let's talk about that now. Let's get into some previews. Cantrell, read out the previews for this week.
All right. So first one, we got Texas A&M traveling to Miami.
So first of all, I'll start here. I like A&M in this game. I think Miami looked good I think Miami looked good week 1, but I think Texas A&M is the better football team. Those recruits showed out for Texas A&M. I think they're the better football team. I think they win the football game, and I didn't have the guts enough to pick it, but I will say this: A&M looks like they're ready to roll. New Mexico's nothing. They're not a great team, but
by any means.
But their quarterback for A&M, Connor Wegman, whatever his name is, 5 touchdowns. He looked good. He was spreading the ball over the yard. He only had 5. He had the same amount of touchdowns as he had incompletions. I'm going A&M in this one.
Yeah, again, it's New Mexico, who is the bottom probably 10 D1 programs. It'll be interesting. Miami did look good opening week. See how Van Dyke plays again against an absolute preeminent defense now in the country. It is home. I don't think weather will be an issue. It shouldn't be, but I think it's a very good football game, and I think the spread showing you that is highly touted as Texas A&M is. Obviously, they're on the road. I think they're 2.5, 3.5, somewhere in there.
4.5.
4.5. Yep.
So it's, they're expecting a close game. I would expect Miami to play very well at home. But I'm going to go with Gino on this one. I think A&M is just a little bit better. I like their playmakers just a tad more. And I like their defense a lot more. So if I'm relying on either team to get a stop somewhere, I would feel way more confident with Texas A&M. So I'm going to go with that.
I'm going with Texas A&M as well here for the sweep. I did like what I saw out of that Texas A&M team last week. And look, say what you want about New Mexico and their lack of ability to play in the big game. I thought that was a great tune-up game for that A&M offense. Obviously, Wegman got the opportunity to play last year, but I thought him being out there with, that group of new guys at receiver, I think that was good for them to get that chemistry. And that's the perfect game to get you ready for a team like Miami. Now, I do agree with you guys. Miami did look good, but I do think that Texas A&M defense will make it tough on Tyler Van Dyke. And we saw last year, once Van Dyke is going up against some of those tougher defenses, he starts to panic a little bit and he starts to play out of character. So I do think A&M will have the ability to force a couple turnovers in that game. And, I think A&M rolls in that one, and I don't think it's ever within one possession. I like A&M to go on the road and make somewhat of a statement in that game.
Like what I hear. Give us game 2, Cottrell.
Game 2, we got Ole Miss versus Tulane.
Man, I love this game.
One of 2 ranked v ranked matchups this week.
I love this game as a whole. Yeah, Cottrell, start us off with this one. We'll go backwards.
So this game for me, I love the story about Tulane. I love that they're getting this love earlier on in the season, but I think this is the game that's going to drop them out of the top 25. I like Jackson Dart and that Ole Miss team to travel to Tulane and, ultimately get a win. I think that Ole Miss offense last week, they looked pretty good. They have things clicking. Jackson Dart played well, and I think that's going to continue this week. And so, while I love the story of Tulane, I think they're going to be an unranked team at the end of this upcoming week.
100% right. You're 100% right. We'll get into that. Shally, go ahead. I really want to get into this. I'm so hype on it.
No, I agree with Cottrell. I think Jackson Dart and that offense is going to be a little bit too much for Tulane. I think it'll be fun to watch Tulane host a big game like this. The Green Wave, kind of a weird place to play. They got a new stadium a couple years ago. That the fans for that team will show out though. That place will be packed, and it'll be a little bit of an intimidating environment. But at the end of the day, I think Ole Miss has too much outside. I think they have the way better quarterback between the two teams. I think Tulane likes to run the ball more than Ole Miss does. I don't like the game flow of that if they get behind. I think if they can be front runners and slow the game down, I like their chances more. But I think Ole Miss is going to be able to get up and down the field on their defense. And as soon as they do and they get behind, Tulane's got to come out of what they're comfortable doing, and that just usually spells doomsday for those type of teams. So I like Ole Miss on the road as well. I think it's a high scoring game though.
I'll tell you what, Tulane's quarterback's legit. Michael Pratt is legit. The guy was 14 for 15 week 1. He looked good. However, Jackson Dart's better, and Jackson Dart has 2 tremendous weapons. You got Trey Harris, you got Jordan Watkins. Trey Harris scored 4 touchdowns week 1. Ole Miss is playing Mercer. Mercer's nothing to sneeze about. They're not a good team, okay? But Trey Harris looked incredible. He looked great on that Ole Miss team. I think Ole Miss is going to cause a stink in the SEC this year. And I think that brutal schedule, but I think they're going to upset a couple teams. Don't be surprised they beat Bama this year. I'm telling you, you heard it here. Ole Miss is going to shock the world and take out one of those SEC teams on the western side. I like Ole Miss this year a lot. I like Jackson Dart a lot. I think Ole Miss wins the football game. I don't think it's rather close. Last but not least, give us the third game we're previewing.
We got the big one. You got those Texas Longhorns traveling to Tuscaloosa to take on the Alabama Crimson Tide.
So you guys know my feelings on this game already. I don't need to go too far into it. I love Texas. I'm a Texas fan right now. I like Quinn Ewers. Quinn Ewers started a little bit slow and got right in a rhythm. Rice they're basically a walkthrough. However, can I ask you a question? And I'm not trying to be smart when I say this. Is that the same? It's not the same JT Daniels, right? That's quarterback for Rice. That's not JT Daniels, right?
No, I think it is.
It cannot be. There's no way. But
well, he got a COVID year. He had some injuries too, like when he was at Georgia. So he's definitely probably on his last leg of eligibility. So it's definitely him.
That's wild. But regardless, I think that Xavier Worthy and Quinn Ewers are going to be a dynamic duo this week. I think Texas covers the 7-point spread, and I will take the points. However, I will take Texas outright to win the football game. Give me Texas on the road to beat Bama. Upset special. Shall we?
So I would have said 2 weeks ago, I would have been way more on board with your prediction. I think Alabama offensively kind of pulled a Saban special and looked a little bit better and kind of, more fluent and efficient than I thought they were going to. That being said, playing Texas's defense versus, Middle Tennessee State is leaps and bounds differently. I think Jalen Milroe looked very good. I think he's obviously going to be the starter going forward. That being said, again, if I was picking this game, I would definitely take Texas. I think Quinn Ewers, Xavier Worthy, that defense, I think they have a little bit of chip on their shoulder on this game because I really do feel they believe they let one slip away in Austin last year. We talked about it last year at the time. They were the better football team on that field for 3 quarters and 10 minutes. Bryce Young had one magical drive in him, got him down the field, won the game. Bryce Young was doing Bryce Young things. That being said, I think Quinn Ewers definitely has a chip on his shoulder coming back. He got hurt at the beginning of last year's game. I think there's a good shot Texas can go to Tuscaloosa and win. I think this is going to be a huge step up in competition for Alabama. You're going to see what Alabama really is now, though. So if they can knock Texas off, then maybe we were all a little bit light on Alabama, sleeping on them a little bit too much in regards to this not being one of Nick Saban's true, kind of great teams. But if I had to pick the game, I would sleep well at night taking Texas +7.
Let's see if Cottrell goes on the other side.
So I'm rolling with Texas, and I like Texas outright. Last week didn't change anything for me. Yes, Jalen Milroe looked good against Middle Tennessee State, but there was nothing out there that really impressed me. I saw him play last year against some of those SEC schools like Arkansas and other schools like that, and nothing he did really impressed me. And I think he is going to struggle a little bit more against a defense like Texas. The other thing that was a little concerning for me, as much as Alabama moved the ball at will against that Middle Tennessee State team, they don't have a true running back. Like, they don't have a real running back one. And that's concerning for me. Every year that Alabama's successful, they have one of those bell cows back there, whether it's Najee or, even before that with Henry and Ingram and all those great running backs that have gone through Alabama. They don't have that this year. I don't love their skills, even at the receiver position. There's no one out there that truly scares me. And so, I don't think they're going to get a Bryce Young-esque performance out of Jalen Milroe. So I like Texas, and I don't like them to just cover. I like them to win that game outright. Tuscaloosa is a crazy place to play. This will be probably the toughest games of everybody on that Texas roster has ever played. But I think they go in there and they win because they're the better football team.
So I really want to see the matchup between Kool-Aid and Xavier. Like, I think they'll be lined up against each other a ton. I really want to see who gets the better of who in that matchup. I think Texas's big thing is they 100% have to control. They have Dallas Turner coming off the edge for Alabama, and they have to control him and make sure he stays away from Quinn Ewers. They keep Quinn Ewers upright. I want to see that matchup. Xavier Worthy versus Kool-Aid. It's going to be the matchup of the day.
I will say, though, I do think Kool-Aid is going to get the better of that matchup very often. Now, I'm not saying Xavier is just going to go catchless or anything like that, but I think Kool-Aid is a true lockdown corner. I think he's going to be the best corner in this class, and I'm saying that now, putting it out there on record. No surprise there. But I think he dominates this matchup. But I do think if Texas is going to be smart, they're going to run a lot of bunch formations, and I think they're going to, run a lot of play action. Keep that Alabama defensive line on their toes, and ultimately make them work with their mind as opposed to just pinning their ears back and getting upfield.
Listen, I know you just said Kool-Aid. You just said something, and it's not a bold statement. Kool-Aid's going to be a first rounder. Guy's a great cornerback, but whenever you say best, whenever you say best corner in the class, I got to think Kalen King, my guy from Penn State. I think he's the best corner in the class. It might be a little biased. I might be, maybe, but give me Kalen King. I love my guy from Penn State.
He's my number 2.
That's fair. That's fair. We can swap them back and forth. After Xavier Worthy gets a little bit better of Kool-Aid this weekend, you can put my man Kalen King on top. That's more of a reason why I'm rooting for Quinn Ewers to Xavier Worthy this week. I actually think that game's going to be a lot more low scoring than people think it's going to be.
I mean, last year it was low scoring, and they
17-16, right?
Or 2019, something. It was 1 point game, whatever way it was.
I thought it was 2019 too. I don't know why that sticks out to me.
I think it was 17-16. Let's see who was right. I'm going to double check it. You're probably right. You guys are better at college football than I am, and I am not going to hide that. Let's see. 2019, you guys are right again. You guys are walking encyclopedias. I can't. It's too annoying. I'm kidding. Great job. Let's get into our picks this week. I'm ready for picks. You all right for pick 'em?
Absolutely.
Control, throw it up. I know you're up one game, you weirdo. Super dog. I'm right there with you, though. You like that?
Yeah.
You like that?
Smart man.
And Saigon is correct. Football will be friggin' awesome this week. So no, put the pick 'em up there. Put it up there.
My bad.
Don't hide it. And then when you go, each person go. You can basically give them the screen so we can clip it and make that into a thing. Cottrell, you are in the lead, so tell us the order.
All right, so we're gonna go in the order of standings here. We'll let Shally go first here. Gene, you can go second, and I'll round us out towards the end.
All right, Shally, you're on the clock.
All right. Well, I'm going to start with a game that we already talked about. I'm going to start with Colorado -2.5 at home against Nebraska. I did not like what I saw out of Nebraska whatsoever. I think Colorado's offense is not going to change or skip a beat at home. I do have concerns over their defense, but if you're asking me if we're going to get into a scoring shootout type game, if you're taking Colorado or Nebraska, I'm taking Colorado based upon what I've seen so far. So Colorado laying 2.5 at home at Boulder, which will be packed. Deion's first home game. I think they, as much as we want to say they let down a little bit, there could be some of that. But I like Deion to have those kids ready, and really have a really good chance to start them at 2-0, which I think 2 weeks ago a lot of us would have laughed at. So I got Colorado probably by at least a touchdown at home over Nebraska. Second game I'm taking Oregon -6.5 on the road at Texas Tech. Texas Tech has glaring flaws in their game. Offense looked very stagnant at times. No efficient, continuancy or anything like that with it. It looked very, very herky jerky, not fluid at all. Oregon, Bo Nix, the big thing with him all the time was he couldn't win on the road. He's kind of got rid of that, that stigma in the last year and a half or so. I think they go to Lubbock, which isn't a great, a super easy place to play. But I like Oregon's offense with all those senior leaders on that team. I think Oregon's going to go into Lubbock and have no problem scoring points on a defense that was just gouged by the Cowboys of Wyoming. So I think Oregon can get it done by more than a touchdown in Lubbock, Texas. Last game, Oklahoma -16.5 at home versus SMU. I'm taking Oklahoma. I think they're going to have to keep pace with Texas. I think depending on what happens in Tuscaloosa, on Saturday, I think goes a long way to Oklahoma's chances and how they're going to match up with Texas. So I like Oklahoma to cover at home. Dylan Gabriel, that offense looked very good week one. SMU is replacing their quarterback, Mordecai, who we've talked about before, who's in Wisconsin now. I think they're a little bit of a rebuild. Oklahoma, Norman, I think that place will be rocking as well. I'm going to go Oklahoma to get it done and cover. I think they blow out SMU. Superdog, I'm going to go App State plus 18.5 against UNC. I think UNC is a little bit of a letdown after the South Carolina game last week. App State is always sneaky good, in-state rival. 18.5 is a lot for me. I think App State is probably a team that's going to win 7 or 8 games this year. I think they have good enough players on the edge and the outside to keep it close. Maybe snag me a couple Superdog picks. So I will go App State plus 18.5.
Good stuff. All right. Well, I'm next on the agenda. I'll start going directly against Shally. Give me Nebraska plus 2.5 over Colorado. I think Nebraska's going to run the football. I think it'll be a much lower scoring game. A little bit of a letdown for Colorado after that big win versus TCU. Give me Nebraska plus 2.5. My second game, Cade McNamara looked really good to start that game for Iowa and then slowed down. I like Iowa to beat Iowa State. I'll lay the 3.5 in that one. I got Iowa minus 3.5 over Iowa State. I think they win the football game. I like Iowa with that one. My third game, this is a little college Cottrell special. Give me Arkansas minus 37.5 over Kent State. KJ Jefferson's going to have a field day versus that Kent State defense. He's going to score 35 points himself, running the ball into the end zone without throwing it. I think the defense gets a couple touchdowns for him. I think they win this game by 50. And for my super dog, give me Eastern Michigan plus 20.5 over Minnesota. I don't know if Minnesota can score 20.5 points, let alone I just don't know. Their offense looks stagnant. I'll take Eastern Michigan plus 20.5 over Minnesota, pick up a couple super dog points.
So funny enough, we do a lot. We actually overlap on some of these games. I'll start out here because I'm also picking the Colorado-Nebraska game. I love Colorado minus 2.5 at home. I think when you have a talent like Shedeur and Travis Hunter on that offense, Dylan Edwards, I think all those guys are going to be amped. And like Bill said, Boulder is going to be rocking. This is going to be, Prime's first home game in that stadium. It's going to be so noisy in there. And I think everybody there is going to be ready to go. And I like Colorado to win big in that one. I think that's a double-digit win for that Colorado team. Talk about running the ball all you want to. I do think it's going to be different because TCU has a better offensive line than what Nebraska has this year. And so I do think that will play a factor in the game as well. But I like Colorado big in that one. Second game I like, one that we already talked about a little bit earlier. I like Texas A&M minus 4.5 at Miami. Again, not going to harp on that one too much since we already talked about it, but I like the way that the A&M offense looked, and I think their defense is going to cause a lot of problems for Van Dyke, and I think they go on the road, they put on a show, and they win that game by at least a touchdown. Last game I like, I'm agreeing with Gene on this one. I have Iowa minus 3.5 at Iowa State. As much as Cade McNamara, struggled after the great start, I do think against that Iowa State team who is, ultimately lost a couple players to suspensions for their gambling issues and things like that. I think they're going to go into that Iowa State game, prepared, and I think they win that game by at least a touchdown as well. So those are my three normal picks there. And then for my super dog this week, I got Stanford plus 29.5 at USC. Don't love Stanford at all this year, but Stanford always finds a way to play UFC tough, and USC has shown you that they don't care about defense at all. So if Stanford can find ways to put up points on the scoreboard, they can find a way to keep this game within 29.5 points. So those are going to be my 4 picks of the week.
Okay. Well, let's get this off the screen, get back to our situation. We got a little NFL action to get into after that. Rumor has Iowa State took Iowa also. Oh, that's pretty funny. Gambling. I like it. I like it. The suspended players did, Alex. All right, so we got some NFL action to get into. Before we get into NFL action, I think it's only right for us to get into our predictions for this year about each award. Coach of the Year, Offensive Player of the Year, Offensive Rookie of the Year, Defensive Player of the Year. we're going to go over all our predictions for the awards. Then we're going to preview some football games, give you some NFL picks. I feel super, super strong about my picks this week. I'm fired up about them. I wish I can give you 4 or 5. I can only give you 3 because that's what we do. I got a lot, though. I love NFL football, and I'm ready. So without further ado, let's go over some awards. Oh, look at this. Me and Cottrell on the same page. NFL Coach of the Year. Cottrell, tell us why it's Robert Saleh.
I mean, I think for Robert Saleh, he's a coach that has been consistently up there in high regards with the best coaches in the league. He just hasn't been able to put it on paper and put it out there in front of the NFL. So I think Robert Saleh, coming off a year where that Jets team didn't make the playoffs, I'm fully expecting that Jets team. I told you guys last week in my prediction that I think they're going to be the 2 seed in the playoffs. And I think when you have that kind of a turnaround, and I get it, they brought in Aaron Rodgers. Of course, you're going to win more games this year. But I think when you have that kind of turnaround with that Jets organization, I think, Robert Saleh is going to be the man to win this award.
Okay. Shally, tell us why it's Nick Sirianni.
Because he got hosed last year. That's why.
I agree.
I think they're going to have another great year. I have him being the number 1 seed in the NFC. I think he'll get a lot of votes, based upon, the continual success he's had now. And I think he might get a couple sympathy votes from being screwed over last year. It's going to be another good roster, but I think if you dominate your conference and continue to keep your team on top, I think he'll get the nod this year.
Especially if he does it with losing both his coordinators. If he does it again, we'll get into that in a minute. I got Robert Saleh. I'm fully bought into the Hard Knocks hype. Every year I watch Hard Knocks and I invest in coaches and I listen to them and what they say. And if I watch the way they run practice, I watch the way they talk to players. Robert Saleh is by far my favorite coach that I've ever watched on Hard Knocks. I like Dan Campbell. I like Rex Ryan. There's some bad ones on there too, man. I bring it up all the time. Joe Philbin was an absolute joke. Watching that, I knew the Miami Dolphins would stink. It was beautiful to understand that. But Robert Saleh I'd want him to be my head coach. You want to talk about a guy that coached the Jets to 7 wins last year or 8 wins last year with no quarterback play. And then you're going to give him the most accurate quarterback in the league? I'm good. I'll take Robert Saleh and the New York Jets. I think the Jets have a huge season this year. We'll get into that, obviously. But Robert Saleh is my pick. I'll go first on the next one. We got Offensive Rookie of the Year. So, once again, I just want to preface this by saying I do not think Jahmyr Gibbs is the best running back to come out of this class. I think he walked into the best situation. He has an offensive line. He has a wide receiver on the outside, and he has a quarterback that can throw it over the top. You cannot make an 8-man box. You watch what Jamal Williams did behind that line last year. Led the NFL in touchdowns. I think Jahmyr Gibbs is walking into a situation. Watch that Lions war room when they got Jahmyr Gibbs. You've seen the way they celebrate it. There's a lot of conversations coming out. They kept their offense coordinator, Ben Johnson. Second year in that offense. The offensive line is very, very good. I think Jahmyr Gibbs has a great year as a rookie. 1,000 rushing, 500 receiving. That gives him enough to win Offensive Rookie of the Year. Shally?
I don't really disagree with anything you said per se, but I think Bijan's going into almost as good situation in that he's going to be the undoubted starter. I think they're going to get him involved in the passing game. And I think as good as Jahmyr Gibbs is probably going to be, I do think he's going to give up some carries, along the way. I think Bijan is going to be the workhorse for Atlanta. The Desmond, Riddler situation scares me. But that being said, he's going to be the run game. I think Travis Algar, is going to be relegated to, 5 to 8 carries a game. And I think Patterson's going to be back on the outside. So they drafted him, with a guy coming back, and Algar that went almost for 1,100 yards last year as an unheralded rookie and still took this guy and number 4 or 5, whatever it was, because they think he's that special of a player. I think he's going to get the most opportunity out of anybody to make a name for himself this year. I think he'll out-touch Jahmyr Gibbs, and for that reason alone, I took Bijan.
Cottrell, I know you're going to go and you'll explain Bijan too, but let me be the rose in between two thorns because you guys are both picking Bijan. So let me give you why I didn't pick him. I didn't pick Bijan Robinson, not because I think he's a bad running back. I think he's great. And not because I think the Atlanta offensive line isn't good, because I think it's very good. I didn't pick Bijan Robinson because I have zero faith in Desmond. Get rid of her. Get rid of her. You got to get rid of the quarterback. And if you don't have good quarterback play, teams can stack the box. I think he's going to see a ton of 8-man boxes. And I think that Bijan Robinson's going to get puzzled up. Here's a bold prediction, right? I don't think he runs for 4 yards per carry. And if he doesn't run for 4 yards per carry, he definitely doesn't win Offensive Rookie of the Year.
So I'm going to go with Bijan, and, similar to Bill here. One of the reasons why I'm going to pick him is because I do think he is going to be the workhorse of that Falcons team. You could talk about, Desmond Ridder being there, and I understand I'm not a big believer in him as well. But last year, the Atlanta Falcons were the number one team in terms of rushing attempts. And so I think, Bijan's going to have plenty of opportunity to do so. We already talked about Tyler Algier and what he was able to do last year. And I think Bijan's more talented. Yep. So I think with him, running behind that offensive line and just him having the availability, and having the attempts there, I think is going to have Bijan pretty much ahead of everybody else. Now, I love what Detroit has already said about their usage of Jahmyr Gibbs, and I think he is going to be right there. Like, I wouldn't be surprised at all if Jahmyr Gibbs won it, but, I think Bijan Robinson's a guy who has the potential to go for 1,300 yards this season. Granted, he's going to probably be on a bad Atlanta Falcons team, but I think if he gets to those numbers, he's going to have a good shot at winning this award. So I do like Bijan here.
All right, we'll start us off on the next one, Cottrell.
So next one, Defensive Rookie of the Year. I'm going with Devin Witherspoon. I love the way that the Seahawks play defense over there, and I think Devin Witherspoon is going to have plenty of opportunity. You saw exactly what Tariq Woolen had last year, what he was able to do in that Seattle system. It's going to be no different for Devin here. I do think he has that ability to take away, top threats. And the nice thing is that he's not going to be guarding, every team's number one receiver. He's going to have the luxury of being over, with receiver number 2 or receiver 3, depending on how they play the field. So I think Devin Witherspoon has a great opportunity here to capture that Defensive Rookie of the Year.
Shally.
Going Jalen Carter to get my homer pick out of the way, and also because I knew Gene was going to pick Will Anderson Jr., so I wanted to pick somebody else. I think he has ability to stay in this race because I think he's going to have a great year. I think he's going to be super disruptive in the middle of that line, which is going to be stacked for the Eagles. I think he'll have enough tackles for loss and probably a couple sacks, a couple fumbles, probably enough to keep him in this conversation. I think this is going to be his coming out party. I really do. I think he's going to be the best player on that defense probably by the end of the year. I truly believe that. So I think he's got a shot to win it. Won't be surprised if he doesn't. It's going to be very hard for defensive tackle to win this award, but I'll give him a chance. So I picked him.
I think if you wanted to go homer, Bill, you should have picked Nolan. I think Nolan has a better opportunity to win the award, flying off the edge and being in that rotation because his numbers have the potential to be there.
I completely disagree with you. I think Nolan only sees about 40% of snaps, whereas Jalen Carter will see about 70. And the only reason I disagree with you there is I like Nolan, but Nolan's basically going to be giving Hassan Reddick some breaks. They're not going to – they have so many edge rushers on that team, and they rotate the edge as much as possible. Whereas interior, they literally only have Fletcher Cox, Jalen Carter, and Jordan Davis. That's the 3 that are going to be plugging the interior. I think if anybody wins it on the Eagles, it's Jalen Carter. However, I think the best defensive player to come out of this draft, and I'm picking him because he's the best defensive player to come out of this draft, is Will Anderson Jr. I watched this kid play against Georgia and be an absolute disruptor. I fell in love with him. I fell in love with how smart he was, how he didn't fall for schemes, how he had gap control, his edge. Right? He was incredible in every aspect of the game of football. There's no surprise that this man went as high as he did. I got Will Anderson Jr. winning the award. I get the next one too. Offensive Player of the Year. So it's really funny, right? All you have to do to get Offensive Player of the Year is ask someone who their number one pick is in fantasy football. Mine's CMC, right? And I think that CMC will catch about 75 to 80 balls, and I think he'll run for 1,300 yards. 49ers offensive line definitely lost a couple key pieces, but Christian McCaffrey is a guy that can make things happen. He's going to score a lot of touchdowns. He's going to catch the ball out of the backfield. Brock Purdy checks down a ton to him. I think Christian McCaffrey is the perfect security blanket. And if he stays healthy for the season, he's going to have 2,000 all-purpose yards and 25 touchdowns. I think Christian McCaffrey wins the award, but he has to stay healthy all year, right? So that's his durability is the question. So I got Christian McCaffrey winning the award.
I'm going with repeat who won last year. I'm going with Justin Jefferson. I think he's going to have another monster year. I think the crazy thing is I don't think we've seen his career year yet, and that's scary when you look at the numbers he's put up his first couple years in the league. He's going to be the undoubted number one in Minnesota. They're going to, I don't want to say they're going to force him the ball, but they will run routes for him over and over and over again because he is their best weapon. He's the reason they're going to win football games. Especially losing Dalvin Cook this year. You can shove Madison, in my face as much as you want. He's a drop off from Dalvin Cook. I don't care how you cut it. I think he's a good running back. I don't think he's on that elite tier like Dalvin Cook was. I think they throw the ball a little bit more this year. I think Justin Jefferson is the beneficiary of that. I think he puts up another crazy year. I think he's my offensive player of the year.
I got Jettas as well. Every reason that Bill just said, and I think the one that I really want to hit on is I 100% agree. I don't think Jettas has had that career year yet. I think Jettas has 2,000 yards in his tank. I think that's going to be something with that Minnesota team throwing the ball all over the yard, and I think they're going to be playing from behind a lot more this year. And so when you're playing from behind, you got to air the ball out more, and I think that's going to be prime opportunity for Justin Jefferson to not only follow up his year from last year, but ultimately I think he's going to eclipse that 2,000-yard mark this year.
Just want to read a couple comments that came through on the Sports Empire Network page. Chris is saying, again, with the Jets Kool-Aid, he's not happy that we're on the Jets. He's a Dolphins guy. Kyle Edwards says, I think Sirianni is a good choice. Unless the Jets win the division, then he'll get screwed again. And, I think that both are fair points. Both are fair points. All right, well, let's move on to the next award. Oh, man, I feel like every one of these, one of us agree except Defensive Rookie of the Year. So we'll see how that continues. Cottrell starts off.
So I'm going with Micah Parsons here. I mean, I think Micah Parsons is the most – I'd argue he's the most versatile defender in the entire NFL. I mean, if you want to play him at linebacker, you can. If you want to throw him out there at safety, you can. If you want him to cover a slot in worst case scenario, he could even do that as well. But I know he's moving primarily to, just be a defensive end this year. And I think he has the talent to put up 20 or more sacks this year. Micah Parsons is phenomenal. No matter if you throw two people at him, he has the speed to get by both. He has the instinct to break, contain, and, keep quarterbacks inside the pocket. I love him as an all-around football player. And the Cowboys did a great thing in adding another corner to help him. Stephon Gilmore, he's going to make quarterbacks hold the ball another half a second, another whole second. And that's going to give Micah Parsons even more opportunity to go after the quarterback. So I love Micah Parsons winning Defensive Player of the Year this year.
Charlie.
I'm going to go with TJ Watt. Coming off his injury last year, cost him about half the year. Still had a great year, still very productive. I think he tries to make up for lost time this year. I really do. I think I do agree with Gene a little bit. I think Pittsburgh is kind of flying under the radar this year. That defense is always good. They let him pretty much do what he wants to do. Guy is super productive, have it be, forcing fumble recoveries. He usually has a pick or two every year, and he's one of the absolute best at getting after the quarterback coming off the edge. Extreme skill, physical, quick, and he's got a high motor type guy. So I think he's the ability to put up crazy numbers like he does. I think he's one of 3 or 4 guys that could win this award, with obviously Micah being the other. a few other guys. But I just went with my gut on this one. I think he has, kind of I'm going to say a bounce back year because he played well when he played last year. But if he can stay healthy, I think he has a great year. So I went with TJ Watt.
Kyle also said Parsons will definitely have the hype behind him this season. I hate saying it this way, but it's the truth. The most electrifying man in sports entertainment. But Micah Parsons, the most electrifying defensive player we've seen over the last 5, 10, 15 years. Micah Parsons is incredible. He's only getting better. I think Micah Parsons wins the award because he's the best defensive player in the world. I think this is last but not least. Am I correct? The MVP. All three of us have somebody different. I finally went homer. Give me Jalen Hurts to finish the story. Little Cody Rhodes reference. Jalen Hurts last year was your MVP. Got hurt, missed 2 games, didn't get the award. This year, I think the Eagles actually start slower offensively. I think they get their feet wet underneath him, and he's primed for a great run down the stretch, particularly the last 4 games. Philadelphia Eagles have a really tough stretch, and their final 3 games are very, very cakewalkish. I think Jalen Hurts can really put together some big numbers, get that momentum down the stretch. I think Jalen Hurts takes the MVP this year.
So I went back and forth with mine. I went back and forth between the guy that Gene just talked about and Joe Burrow. I've said my thoughts on Hurts early this year. I think his running numbers take a little bit of a dip this year because I think they want to keep him upright. But I'm going to go with Joe Burrow. I think he has a monster year. The rumor is that the contract's about done, so I think he has that stress off his back. He says he's 100% healthy with the calf. He's looked good from everything, all the videos I've seen. I think he has a monster year. I have Cincinnati representing the AFC in the Super Bowl this year against my Philadelphia Eagles. I think he puts up unworldly numbers. I think Jamar Chase, that whole receiving core, Joe Mixon's back. I think he just becomes the MVP. I really do. I think it's a close race. If you had it, if you made me list the top 3, these are the top 3 for me. So I think it's kind of wild. We all picked one and a different one at that. So, but give me Joe Burrow, Cincinnati Bengals. About to be a $53 million a year man, which is kind of wild. So, but I think Joe Burrow adds some hardware to his trophy case this year.
Jump off Joe Beasy.
At the literal end of the day, I didn't want to pick a guy who won the award last year, but this is the best quarterback in football, and he's in a tier of his own. And if he plays all 17 games next season, he's going to have the best numbers in the entire NFL, and there's no doubt in my mind about that. I think Patrick Mahomes is in a spot where, you can get that voter fatigue. He's already won 2 at this point in his career, and he won last year. So I do think he does have to kind of deal with the voter fatigue factor. But, if he throws for 5,000 yards and the Chiefs win 13 or 14 games again this year, and he has 40 to 50 touchdowns this year, I just don't know how you don't give this man the award again. As much as I love Burrow and I love Jalen Hurts as well, I just don't think numbers wise they're going to be able to dethrone Patrick Mahomes. So I'm rolling with Mahomes again. He's going to take home his 3rd MVP.
Are you rolling with my homies?
Yep, sure am.
So before we get into our previews, 2 big pieces of news that I wanted to. Well, 3, if you want to be honest. Anybody that took Cooper Kupp in their fantasy football leagues, I just want to tell you, I told you so. Guy is injured, and I don't think he's going to play. I think that, Cottrell can tell you he told you so. He didn't put him on the damn list. So, Cottrell, tell him you told him so. Go ahead.
I told you so.
But, I didn't draft him in any of my 14 leagues. I'm kidding. I'm in 11. 11 is just as bad. I don't know why I lied about that number. But, I didn't draft him in any of my leagues intentionally because I really just don't. I don't love him right now. He's a great receiver when fully healthy. He's on the back half of his career. He's on the back 9. He's on hole 15. The career's getting over, right? Like, and the hamstring issues are really bad to the point where they might put him on IR to start the season. So that's number 1. Any comments on Cooper Kupp? I seen Shally ready to go.
No, I was just going to add that tidbit you had at the end. All the indications are they're going to put him on the PUP list, which means you're not going to see him in the week 5. And I got your Moneyball reference, so I appreciate that.
Next on the agenda, Travis Kelce, hyperextension of the knee at practice. He's not going to play tomorrow night, guys. Just get him out of your lineup now. You don't hyperextend your knee and then play 3 days later. They feel like his ACL is intact, which is great news for Chiefs fans. Don't expect to see him till week 3. He'll probably sit out week 1 and week 2, and they'll bring him back week 3. So your Travis Kelce drafters, I did it in one league. I did it in the leagues that had opportunity to do it at positional value. But, it sucks. Injuries happen. Travis Kelce will not play this week and probably not next week.
See, I actually disagree. I think he plays this week. I don't think he gets high snaps, but I think they left the door open just so that he's going to dress. They're going to make it a game time decision. I think he's going to go out there and test it, but I don't think he's going to play outside of that first quarter. I do think he's going to try and give it a go, that he's gone through all the testing and all that stuff. So I don't know why you wouldn't just say, hey, he's out week 1 if there's, seriously no chance that he's going to play this week. So I do think that he's going to suit up. I think he's going to try and give it a go, but I just don't see him making it through the entire game. And that's when I think you won't see Travis Kelce play week 2 as well.
So he said, Jason Kelce said he's got some swelling going on. From what we know right now, his knee is fine. It's getting the swelling down and how bruised that bone is. He was limping when I saw him walking off the field. It was a good sign to see him get up by himself and get off the field. The next guy steps in and we roll. Andy Reid's already talking about the next guy stepping in. I'm almost sure Noah Gray starts this week, and I don't think he plays week 2 either. But
I'm going to go with Gene on this. I actually think there's zero shot he plays tomorrow, and I think they're going to roll him out extremely early tomorrow. I think they have to make that their out designations early tomorrow morning for the 7:30 kick. I think Travis Kelce will be ruled out early tomorrow morning. You don't go from we're relieved to find out that his ACL is most likely intact. He's got a bunch of swelling too. We're going to let him suit up for week 1 and see what he can do. It's pointless. I don't think he plays week 1. I don't think he plays week 2. And if you've ever had a bone bruise, I will tell you bone bruises heal slower than real bruises do. I think there's a chance he gets put on PUP. I really do. There's no reason for Kansas City to throw their season away in week 1 or week 2 with trotting him out there where they don't have to and risking like severe injury to that joint. I just don't see it. I don't think there's any shot he's playing tomorrow night. And week 2, I guess if they don't pup him, I guess there's a chance you see him week 3. I think there's at least a 50-50 shot he winds up on the pup list. They're going to shut him down, let it heal, let the bone bruise heal, keep scanning it, make sure it's gone, make sure the knee is structurally sound, and then roll him out week 5, and he'll pick up where he normally does.
I think he definitely. I don't think they pup him. I think he definitely comes back for week 4 at the Jets, NBC, Sunday Night Football, big game. Kelce's he's gonna fight to get back for that game. I'd be shocked to see him out there tomorrow night. So wait, Cottrell's normally right when we're arguing with him. Cottrell, you think he plays tomorrow night?
Yeah, I think first drive of the game, you see him out there, he's gonna give it a go. They're gonna let him suit up, see how he feels. And I think at any sign of any discomfort, they're gonna pull him. And so I do think that he gets the first drive, maybe the second drive, but then you don't see him the rest of the game. Like, I don't even think he makes it to the second quarter. And then I think from that point on, they make him sit week 2. And I ultimately think he comes back week 3. I think he's fighting like hell to make sure he can be out there and play tomorrow night.
The only reason I disagree with that is I just feel like if you're on the fence about if he can even get out of the first quarter, I don't know why you would even let him suit up. If you're that sure he's not even going to finish the game or play the game, then he's not healthy enough to play, and I just don't know why you would risk it. He is the biggest asset on that team, not named Patrick Mahomes. So
I mean, I agree with you 100%. I just think that at the end of the day, a lot of times you do have to protect players from themselves, but I think Travis Kelce is doing whatever he can to go out there. especially because, this is that first game. They won the championship last year. They're going to do their whole ceremony, things like that. So he's going to want to be a part of that and not just being out there. I think he's going to try and suit up to play. Now, obviously, the goal isn't to just see if he can, handle one quarter and go from there. But I just think that's where it ultimately ends up. They're going to see, hey, we're going to make him a game time decision, and he's going to give it a go. He's going to think he's fine. He's going to go plant, or something's going to happen where they're like, hey, we can't even risk this now. And I don't think you see him the rest of the game.
I don't think it's more of the planting. I think it's more of the helmet to the knee or shoulder pad to the knee that they're going to see that they don't want him to experience in game one. Just an opinion. I think it'd be really foolish for Kansas City, who's projected to win 12, 13, 14 games this year. Like, I would rather have 100% healthy Travis Kelce win 11 games this year, 12 games, than win 14 and not have Travis Kelce. I feel like that you got to be careful and you live for the playoffs. I also want to see Patrick Mahomes go on the road this year and prove some people wrong, winning some road playoff games. He's at every playoff game in Arrowhead, so I want to see him go on the road and win some playoff games. But let's get a little bit further. Third big news of the day, which I celebrated. For whatever weird reason, I celebrate this. The San Francisco 49ers gave a 5-year, $170 million contract to Nick Bosa. And as an Eagles fan, I celebrate it. You know why I celebrate it? You're giving that much money to an edge rusher. You're out of your friggin' mind. You got to pay a quarterback. They don't really have one on the roster. I don't think they're going to have one. And I think when Brock Purdy falls on his face this year, the San Francisco 49ers turn into irrelevancy, which I would love to see. What are your thoughts on the Nick Bosa comment? I do hate the 49ers, Gio, 100%. And Gio posted, Gene really hates the 49ers. This was not a thing before last year. That NFC Championship game, those players afterwards that acted like complete crybabies, the 40 whiners, which I call them, the 40 whiners, there's 40 of them, they're all whiners. Those bums that ran their mouth after that football game, Trent Williams throwing punches at our safety, Kayvon Wallace. They acted like a bunch of babies on the football field. I'm good. So, yes, I do hate the 49ers.
I mean, I think this is a terrible contract itself. You had to find a way to get Bosa re-signed. Like, there was no way you could let him walk out of San Francisco. But $170 million is absolutely insane. Now, I kind of understand, from their perspective, kind of what they're thinking. Because like you said, they're not paying a quarterback right now. And with Brock Purdy just being on the second year of his rookie deal, you don't really have to worry about that anytime soon if Brock Purdy is anywhere close to being as advertised or what you think of him and what Kyle Shanahan and that front office thinks of him. But I don't know how you can go about paying an edge rusher $170 million. It's absolutely insane to me. But I understand they were in a tight spot and you had to make them the highest paid. But $170 million is way, way too much. I thought you could have probably got him for, if you gave him some more guaranteed money, you could have got that number a lot lower, in my opinion.
He wanted to be paid more than Aaron Donald. $34 million is his average salary per year. He wanted to pass Aaron Donald's 31, and that meant a lot to him. Nick Bosa chose a huge time to hold out. He won Defensive Player of the Year last year and was like, now I'm going to get paid. And he's smart. Him and his agent are smart for what they did. They handcuffed the 49ers in a season where the 49ers are going all in to win the Super Bowl. I just love it because I realized now that if the 49ers don't have an option at quarterback, which I don't think they will, then they don't have the money to spend to get one. So, just an opinion. Shao, what are your thoughts on Nick Bosa deal?
I agree with both of you. I think it's wild. Everything, all the reports that came out pretty much said, the biggest thing with him was exactly what you guys said. He wanted to be able to say he was the highest paid defensive player in the league. Got accomplished. Kudos to him and his agent. I was trying to find the list real quick because I saw it on Twitter a little bit ago, and it just their top 10 contracts for next year. How much money it was. There and when you factor in, like Gene said, that they're not really paying a quarterback yet. San Francisco is going to have money. They're going to have cap issues next year. I know they'll probably try to convert a lot of it, but they are up Schitt's Creek for lack of a better term with some of the cap hits they have next year. Yeah, and if you're an Eagles fan, or if you're a rival of the 49ers in any certain way, you love this news. It's not your money. They're not spending your team's money. They're spending their own money. So, listen, man, I mean, the kid's a great player. I'm not going to take anything away from him. As long as he's on the field, he is productive as hell. Like you said, he's coming off Defensive Player of the Year. Kudos to him, man. He played the game the right way. He held out at the right time. Had all the leverage against the 49ers. They really had no choice but to give him what they gave him. But I mean, they're going to hate this contract at some point. There's no way around it.
Yeah, they're $15 million over the cap for next year now. They got a $5 million dead hit from Trey Lance from trading him. The Deebo Samuel contract was he was overpaid. Trent Williams is obviously the highest paid left tackle in the league. And Eric Armstead is overpaid. So you're paying basically 2 edge rushers $60 million next year. It's insanity.
I mean, I do think the one thing, though, that kind of is starting to not matter as much in the NFL is their ability to manipulate the cap.
Yeah.
So if you have an owner that's willing to just, hey, we know we're over the cap right now, but I'll just shell out, $30 million to you right here, right now, just to get us back under that number, and we'll navigate, your cap hit down a little bit. Then you're still going to be in a good spot. Dallas has obviously been the team that's been consistently doing it as of late. I think San Francisco, and we haven't had the details of that Nick Bosa contract yet. I'd be very curious to see if it's more front loaded towards, as opposed to that 5th year when either Brock Purdy is going to be up for extension or, his contract's just going to run out. If they made that number a little bit lower than anticipating paying a quarterback then, or is it just evenly spread all the way out? But, I mean, regardless, any way you look at it, I think they just gave him way too much money.
Chris said NFL teams literally have guys whose job it is to manipulate the cap. Some are just better at it than others. I agree, Chris.
I think, again, I don't think it's come out yet, but the rumor is, that Burrow is close to signing his, and he's going to be around $53 million a year. So that will be something we'll probably talk about next week once it becomes official and we can actually see the structure of it. And I gotta give Brandon a little bit of a egging here. We were talking about Kelsey and Kupp. He is the only person I know that has drafted both of them on his fantasy team. So week 1 is not looking promising for the Fister gang. So it will be it's gonna be a rough couple weeks.
Philadelphia Eagles are $54 million under the cap next year. $54 million under. Howie's a genius. Give him credit.
It's funny because 3 years ago you were on the complete opposite end of that boat.
Listen, in order to be in this business, you have to be okay to be wrong. And Howie Roseman was wrong on a lot of his draft picks, and he's improved. And I'm okay being wrong, saying that I wanted him fired because I wanted him fired for first of all, he drafted Nelson Aguilar, which was a terrible pick. He drafted Jalen Reagor, which was a terrible pick. He drafted J.J. Arcega-Whiteside, which was a terrible pick. He's had some really bad drafts. He's had some bad hires. He's improved. He's gotten better. Right now, I got to give him credit where credit's due.
No, it's not even – I wasn't even talking about the draft picks. I more so meant with, looking at the Eagles and their outlook on things about, kicking the bucket on Carson, like numbers-wise, about, that dead cap, things like that. I'm saying you guys were in a completely different boat 2 years ago looking down the line like, hey, we got to pay the piper at some point. And now, he's found a way to have you guys with that much cap space and arguably the best roster in all of football. So –
do you know what their dead money is next year? $200,000. It's one of the lowest in the league. The Seahawks are $77,000, but there's not many teams that have less dead money.
Makes sense.
So, all right. So we got to move on to some previews. We got a couple previews this week. It would be foolish for us not to start with the opening night game, Thursday Night Football. Defending champion Kansas City Chiefs host the Detroit Lions. I think that Travis Kelce being out changes the dynamic of this game. I was so ready to pick the Kansas City Chiefs up until 2 days ago. I will start with this one. I am going – let me just make sure it's not one of my picks because I have a bunch that I like this week. It is not one of my picks, and that's okay. It's like a bonus pick for you guys. I like the Detroit Lions in this game plus 5.5. I got it at 6.5 earlier. I bet it already. I got it at 6.5 when it was 6.5. It's down to 5.5 already. I also sprinkled a little on the money line. I think the Detroit Lions, without having Chris Jones there, without having Travis Kelce there, are able to run the football on Kansas City. And when Kansas City, Steve Spagnuolo is known for this, stacks the box to stop the run. You got Amon-Ra St. Brown and Jared Goff, and I think their secondary is struggle city. I think Detroit does not struggle to put up points tomorrow night. I think Detroit scores with Kansas City, and I think they end up outscoring them. I got the Detroit Lions winning this football game 31-27 Lions.
I'm going to go with the Lions as well, plus 5.5. I think the Kelce thing makes that pick even a little bit more comfortable because I don't think he plays tomorrow night. That being said, Mahomes is home. He's going to do his thing. I think he makes enough crazy plays and gets enough completions and so forth and so on, like he always does. The guy's absolutely magic, especially when he gets outside the pocket. I think he makes enough plays to where Kansas City stays in the game and ultimately pulls it out late, maybe by a field goal or so. But I'm a pretty confident pick on. I think Detroit covers at plus 5.5.
So, as long as Patrick Mahomes is playing, I'm taking the Chiefs in this game. I don't care if Travis Kelce's out there. I don't care if Chris Jones is out there. And that offensive line, as long as they hold up, I 100% think that the Kansas City Chiefs are going to win this game. I think the Chiefs have enough on offense to make up for that Travis Kelce deficiency. Now, obviously, he's the best tight end in the league, and it's not even close there. But I think them having Sky Moore and them having Rashee Rice and, just all the weapons that they have, I think they can find a way to make up for it. And, ultimately, I think that Kansas City secondary can hold off Amon-Ra from making the big play. I think the Lions will move the ball efficiently, but, at the end of the day, Patrick Mahomes is on the sideline for the Chiefs, so I got the Chiefs winning that one.
I think this is the Lions Super Bowl. I really believe it. I think Dan Campbell is preaching the fact that they have the opportunity to shock the world and beat the world champions. I think for the Kansas City Chiefs, they have already played their Super Bowl. It was in February. This for the Lions is a huge Super Bowl matchup for them. I think they make a statement. I think they go out there and win the football game. You look at Patrick Mahomes, he's the best player on the football field, right? But the second and third best player that played for the Chiefs, Chris Jones and Travis Kelce, both won't be there. So if they're both not there, there's only so much one guy can do. And if you take Patrick Mahomes off that Chiefs roster without Chris Jones, without Travis Kelce, that's a bad football team. It's a bad football team. I will say this. I think Justin Ross gets in the end zone tomorrow night. I look forward to that, actually. I really just want to see the kid I really want to see the kid succeed coming from everything he's came from. So I like the Lions to win the game outright. Kyle Edwards says Mahomes will want to make a statement as well. Chris said so much movement towards the Lions in this game smells like a 14-point Kansas City win. I hear you, Chris. I understand. I think that the movement has to do with the fact that they don't think Jason Kelce's playing. So I get what you're saying. I think that's where the line movement's coming from. All right, so next game on the docket. We can go to a couple different ways here. I'm thinking let's go Browns-Bengals. 1 o'clock start. Browns-Bengals. Kittrell, I want you to start off. Give me the preview for your Brownies.
So, Browns-Bengals. The Browns have surprisingly had Joe Burrow's number since he's come into the league. Joe Burrow's only beaten the Browns one time at this point in his career, and that one time was last year. Now, for the Bengals, obviously they are traveling to Cleveland in this one, and Joe Burrow is, according to him, 100% healthy. So you will see both teams pretty much, healthy across the board. And so I think this makes for a phenomenal week 1 matchup.
Are you picking the game? Is that why you're not giving us a winner?
No, I could definitely give you, who I think wins. This is not one of my official picks here. But I do like the Browns to win this game in Cleveland. I think with the Browns and where they're at offensively, I think they're going to be able to run the ball over that Cincinnati Bengals team. Now, on the other side of the ball is where I do have my questions. This will be the first real week where they're running Jim Schwartz's scheme. And so it's going to be interesting to see how Cincinnati is able to pick that apart. But, I do. It might just be wishful thinking here, but I do think at the end of the day, the Browns are going to have the ability to pin their ears back, start to get after the quarterback. And the way Jim Schwartz runs his schemes, I do think that they are going to be able to, get one, maybe even two turnovers off of Joe Burrow. So I think it's going to be a tight game. Probably, I don't want to say lower scoring. I think it's going to be mid-20s, 27, 21, but I think it's going to be a Browns win.
Before Shally goes, is your nickel, just wondering, is your nickel Martin Emerson?
No, Martin plays outside. Greg Newsome is the nickel.
Okay, so I think that Jim Schwartz defense, and just coming from experience in Philadelphia, you have to have corners that can stick receivers and not let them get behind you. Jim Schwartz plays a very you're going to turn the ball over a lot less than normal. The only turnovers you'll see will be strip sack fumbles. You're going to see a lot of man-to-man coverage, and you're going to get a lot of people. He's going to try to stop the run. He's going to play man-to-man football, and he's going to more protect the end zone than attack the ball. So
I love that. That's what I'm hoping for. I was calling for it all of last year. I think we have the corners between Greg and Denzel. Those are two man-to-man corners. Even Martin just came in, and he's shown flashes at playing man. So I think that's a good system for those DBs.
Okay, Shai, who you like in this game?
I like Cincinnati. I like Cincinnati because I like their offense. I think another year removed. I think Boyd and Higgins and obviously Jamar Chase. Kind of, to get into what you were just talking about. I know how Jim Schwartz likes to call games. I don't know if you're gonna be able to chase those three receivers around man-on-man coverage all game long without them making some plays. I think Joe Mixon will have a decent game just to keep Cleveland honest. And I'm still one of those guys, like, I need to see the improvement from Deshaun Watson. We keep talking about it and we keep hearing it. I need to see it in a real game. I need to see him look like the old Deshaun Watson. Because until he does, I think Cleveland's going to struggle to score the ball. I think they have, they have maybe debatably the best running back in football in Nick Chubb, and they have a great offensive line. Receivers is probably not the strength of this team. I need to see Deshaun Watson go out and do it in a real football game against a real team when it matters. So, I am one of the people I think that he will get closer to where he used to be, but I need to see it first. And I think, an opening week game against a very good Cincinnati Bengals team is a little bit tough for me. So I'm going with Joe Burrow, and the comfortableness that he has with his wide receivers and that whole offense. I think they just score enough points. I think they win like 27-24.
So I got a real mixed feelings on this football game. Saigon says, good matchup, but I'll take the Bengals by 3. Chris said, Browns need it. Browns have an uphill battle in the division, and getting a division win week 1 would be huge. He also said Tyler Boyd is the best number 3 option in the league. I would agree with him up until this year. I think that Jackson Smith and Jigba will be the best number 3 option in the NFL this year. But that's okay. I have the Browns in this one, and it's kind of a weird way. I think the Browns will score with them. I think they'll be fine. I think the difference in this football game is I think the Browns offense versus the Bengals defense. And I think the Bengals lost a little bit too much on defense this year. I think their defense is going to be a slow start in defense. I obviously love Trey Henderson, DJ Reader, but outside of that, I'm not a huge fan of what they've done, what they have in the secondary. Cam Taylor-Britt, I don't think will be a very good corner. I think he'll get exposed. And I think what ends up happening in this game is Browns run the ball with that offensive line. Brings up the corners, brings up the safeties. And I think ultimately Deshaun Watson makes a couple big plays in this football game and makes enough for the Browns to win this one. I'm not confident enough to put this as one of my picks, but I do like home dogs, and especially week 1 division home dogs. They have a very good hit rate. So I'll take the Browns. barely. Next game, we'll talk about the Philadelphia Eagles. They're going to New England to play the Patriots. I'll start with this one. This is going to be a really bad game for the Philadelphia Eagles. I do not like the Eagles setup in this game. I think that Bill Belichick has had an entire offseason to plan for this football game. It's in New England. I think there's a new offensive scheme, a new offensive system. The Eagles have 2 new coordinators at both sides of the ball. I think this is an ugly, ugly football game. I think the Eagles sneak out of here with a win, 24-21. I don't think they cover. I'll take the Patriots plus the points, and I wouldn't be surprised if the Patriots win the football game. So give me the Eagles 24, Patriots 21 in an ugly week 1 matchup. I also believe that not playing Jalen Hurts any in the preseason is going to affect them. Just an opinion. I think he'll have a little bit of a slow start. Don't worry, Eagles fans. I think the Eagles will be fine. I did have Jalen Hurts winning the MVP, but I don't think this is a good start for them.
So I'll go next here because I have the complete opposite. I think this is going to be one of the ugliest blowout kind of wins that you see week 1. And I don't mean ugly, meaning that the team's going to win by 50 points. I think this is going to be a game where the Eagles win 28-7 or 27-3 or something like that. And they look pretty pedestrian in a sense in that game, but I think they're going to shut down that New England Patriots offense. Don't love what they have right now in the run game. I get it. Ramondre Stevenson coming off a great year last year. I think the Eagles will find a great way to bottle him up. And also hearing the news about Juju Smith-Schuster, their number 1 receiver, and his knee having the ability to blow up at any point, I think that damages that New England offense. And I didn't love it to begin with. I think they lack weapons, and I think they're going to have a hard time scoring on that Philadelphia Eagles team. While I do agree with Gene, you give Bill Belichick plenty of time to prepare for a matchup like this. I do think he will have something in store for that Eagles offense, and it will slow them down. But I still think they find a way to put three or more touchdowns on the board, and I think they win this game by 2, maybe even 3 possessions, and they hold the New England Patriots under 10 points in this one.
Shall we?
I'm going to agree with Cottrell. I will agree with one thing with Gene. I think Jalen Hurts looks rusty for probably about a quarter. Probably first 2 or 3 possessions, he's probably just a little bit off. Timing's a little bit off. That being said, the biggest thing for me is, Juju's not healthy at all. They're going to run. I don't know what New England's going to run. They're going to run 3 tight ends against that defense. I just don't see it. I think if I had to choose between the 2 units, I think the defense is going to look better than the offense is come Sunday. But I think they shut down New England. I do. I don't think New England scores more than 17 points. I agree with Cottrell as well. I think the Eagles find a way to score at least 3, maybe a field goal. I think they win by somewhere 7 to 10 points. I don't think it's the best looking win by any means. I think anytime you can go to New England week 1 and beat a Bill Belichick team, I think you just take that check mark, put that feather in your cap, and you roll on to the next week. So I think the Eagles get it done. I think it's kind of a professional win. Nothing fancy. They get done when they need to get done, whatever it takes to get the W, and then roll out of Foxborough and come home. So I like the Eagles to win.
You get to start on Monday Night Football. Buffalo Bills, New York Jets. Who you got and why?
I'm not going to tell you who I got right now and why, because this is one of my picks. But I think this is the exciting, probably the most exciting matchup on the week 1 slate. Aaron Rodgers, big debut for the Jets at home underdog at that. I think that is a crazy little thing to throw into this. Josh Allen and the boys coming to town, a team that's kind of run the division for the last couple of years. And, if you ask everybody on this show, Buffalo's not making the playoffs this year. So, I think that AFC East has gotten very good and tough very quickly. And Aaron Rodgers is a big part of that. I got to say, for a Monday night opener, I think it's the most excited I've been for a Monday night game in a long time. I think New York is going to be, electric with his home debut, and you have to give him credit. You know how he plays when the lights are the brightest most of the time. So I think the Bills are going to come in and try to silence a bunch of fans and kind of make a statement. And they're tired of hearing about Aaron Rodgers being in the division and so forth and so on. But I think the Jets are a very, very good well-rounded, complete football team.
Robert Saleh has exactly what it takes to slow down the Buffalo Bills. He has corners that can cover, and he has interior line that can move Josh Allen outside the pocket. Quentin Williams, Sauce Gardner. That's all I will tell you. I like the Jets in this football game. It kind of concerns me that 80% of the money is on New York. I always think on primetime games, you really have to watch the money a lot more than you have to watch it on like a Sunday afternoon game. But when you see 80% of the money on one side, you kind of get a little nervous. But my football opinion and my expert opinion on watching the NFL, I think the Jets win the football game. Robert Saleh has had Josh Allen's number every time they've played. Even in the games that the Bills have won, it was 18-10. That's not something that you want to write home about with Zach Wilson turning the ball over 3 times. I think Josh Allen continues his turnovers. I don't believe in Ken Dorsey. I think the Buffalo Bills have a very off season. I think Aaron Rodgers goes out there and lights it up. Give me the Jets. I think the Jets win this one 21-13.
Yeah, I'm rolling with the Jets as well in this one. I think this is a game that those New York Jets have probably had circled on their calendar pretty much all offseason. Not just because, the Bills have been, the perennial, not, I don't want to say perennial, but the division winner the past couple years. I think this is a big game for them to just showcase. I mean, Josh Allen has been, considered a top 3, top 4 quarterback pretty much every year. Aaron Rodgers has been told that he fell off last season and that, he's over the hill in that aspect. And I do think for the Bills, them not having Von Miller is going to be a pivotal piece. That pass rush is not there for that Buffalo Bills team. And if you want to be able to make Aaron Rodgers uncomfortable, you have to either get great cornerback play and you have to get great defensive line play. And I just don't know how much that you're going to get. Breece Hall and Dalvin Cook are both going to be playing on that Monday night game. And so I think you're just going to have a well-balanced Jets team that's going to be ready to fight. I think this game is going to be a fun one early, but I think the Jets ultimately, run away with it towards the end. I like the Jets winning by 2 touchdowns in this one. I could see this game ending up 31-17 or something along the lines of that.
A lot of people don't realize how many people the Buffalo Bills lost on defense. It's a great point you bring up, Cottrell. But I do still think that the defensive line will be strong. They brought in Leonard Floyd. They have Gregory Rousseau. They still have Ed Oliver. Ed Oliver's an absolute stud. But what I think they lost is at the linebacker position and at their second cornerback position. They're starting Christian Benford at cornerback 2 this year. Do you realize what that is? That's a 6th-round draft pick from last year that was not projected to make the team. Is starting as their number 2 corner.
And I think that
hold on real quick. The one thing about Trey Day that a lot of people don't realize is he doesn't shadow number 1 wide receivers. So the Jets could easily exploit that by lining Garrett Wilson up on the other side and putting him against a 6th-round draft pick from 2022. Every down, they can exploit that. Trey Day is a lot like Richard Sherman. He sits on one side of the field and he shuts that field down. Tre'Davious White's a hell of a cornerback, but he's not seen a full season in the NFL 2 straight years. So we'll see what happens this year. I really think the Jets have a lot to – I like the Jets in this game.
I was just going to add, I mean, talent-wise, I do think the Bills have talent on that defensive line, but in a position – and Ed Oliver is a monster in the middle for sure. But I just think in a position where one of those guys has to step up and be the number 1 pass rush guy on that team, it's a completely different situation. You saw Greg Rousseau have a lot of success last year after, Von Miller was on the scene. But then once he was out with injury, you saw his numbers really take a huge step back. So I think that's going to be a big factor in this game.
Spot on. In-depth analysis we give you here at Wire2Wire. All right, so for Pick'em this week, I'm going to call it, and I'm making a prediction for you guys at home. I'm still going to win the NFL Pick'em for a 3rd straight year. However, I really believe that Fatum Shally is going to have a much better season this year. I think he finishes at the 60% mark. I think he's going to push me a little bit. And College Cottrell is tired of just winning in college football Pick'em. He's ready to take me out in NFL Pick'em also. I think all three of us picked 60% or above this year. Shally, being that you were the fade last year, I know you won't be the fade this year because you came on strong near the end. Start us with your 3 NFL picks.
Yeah, my last month last year was good.
It was very good. I had to build you up. I don't want to bring you down.
First 3.5 months were terrible, and we'll leave it at that.
We just had to get to 20. We had to get to the next year. That's all.
Yeah, if anything, the good thing came out. I mean, it spawned the super Shally fade corner last year, so that was fun. But hopefully we don't see that this year. But
and then they faded you, and then you start picking winners, so they lost a ton of money off of Shally last year.
Yeah. Cost everybody money. That's what you get for Dr. Shally. So listen, this is where we're going to start. My first game, I'm going Seattle -5.5 at home against the Rams. Love this game. It's one of my favorite plays this week. Not my favorite, but one of my favorites. And I'll say that Cooper Kupp is not going to play. We already know that. You have a Matt Stafford team, not really any other great offensive weapons. Cam Akers, I think, is going to be your cowbell running back type guy this year. I do believe that, but I mean, Cam Akers isn't going to score 4 touchdowns in this game. Seattle's defense sneakily got good at the end of the year last year. They've improved dramatically from 2 years ago. And you have that offense coming back this year, a 2-headed attack at the running back position between Kenneth Walker and Zach Charbonnet. They added Jackson Smith and Jigba by, depending on who you talk to, Cottrell would probably be one of them, is the best receiver in this class. Pete Carroll said today at his press conference that he expects him to start. So they're going to line up with, when they go 3 wide, when they go into that personnel, they're going to line up with, Tyler Lockett, DK Metcalf, and Jackson Smith and Jigba. They are loaded offensively. I think they score enough points. I don't think the Rams can go, up and down the field with Seattle, especially without Cooper Kupp being the safety valve there to always be open and get that catch and get the first down to extend drives. I think they get to Matt Stafford enough to bother him and, get him off the spot. He probably throws at least 1 pick. No Jalen Ramsey on the defensive end to at least lock one of these guys down. I think all 3 of them are going to be running pretty wild all year, and it's at Seattle. So always a very tough place to play. I like Seattle. Secondly, I don't know if secondly is a word.
Hold on. You gave me a second to pause. I want to at least say this. 8 out of the 11 starters on the Rams defense are either rookies drafted in the 6th round or later or undrafted free agents. 8 out of the 11 starters on the Rams defense this year, none of them blue chip talent outside of Aaron Donald.
None. The second game, I'm going to go Jacksonville -4.5 in Indianapolis. No Jonathan Taylor. Anthony Richardson's actual first start against a starting caliber defense, which should be good. I think they get aggressive with him. I don't think they're going to let him run the ball and get into any kind of rhythm at all. I think he makes a couple highlight plays. I do. I think he's that good of an athlete. He probably makes a throw or 2 that are crazy. I also think he's going to throw a couple bad ones. I think he's going to misread a couple, situations. He's probably going to throw a pick or 2. I think if you give Trevor Lawrence and that offense too many extra possessions, I think it's going to come back to haunt you. Travis Etienne, fully healthy. Trevor Lawrence. Evan Ingram, fully healthy. Calvin Ridley, added to the team now. A top 10 wide receiver, 2 years ago. I love Jacksonville in this game. They're going to Indianapolis to pick up a big road division win to start off the year. That is my second pick for the week. Last but not least, the game we just talked about. New York Jets +2.5 at home with Aaron Rodgers. I thought this was a joke. I thought I was looking at it wrong. I almost had to go get my old man reading glasses to look at the spread again to make sure I had it right. Was out late last night. Just wasn't sure if I was seeing it correctly. Aaron Rodgers at home, bright lights, Monday Night Football, +2.5. And I think they're the better football team. We already talked about it. I think they're the better defense for sure. I think Robert Saleh is going to have a great game plan against Josh Allen. Sauce Gardner is going to shadow Stephon Diggs all over that football field. I don't think Josh Allen has enough outside of him to do any damage to New York. And again, I think there's a chance Garrett Wilson has a huge game. I think they're going to run the ball with Breece Hall and Dalvin Cook. I love New York in this game. Love New York. I'm going to take the 2.5 because Vegas wants to give it to me. I think New York wins the game outright.
All right, Cottrell.
All right, so I got some that are Just none of them sexy. None of them sexy at all. But I love two of the three. Third one a little iffy on, but we're rolling with it. First one, I got the Ravens -10 at home against Houston. Obviously, this is going to be CJ Stroud's first start, in an NFL game in his career, and I think that John Harbaugh will have something prepared for him. I think the Ravens team is going to make him very uncomfortable, and they're going to move him off of his spot. I said it to Gene before. I really think CJ Stroud, this first year for him, is going to be a struggle. I don't think he has adjusted to the NFL speed yet, quite like Bryce Young has. I do think CJ Stroud is going to struggle a little bit more, and I think that first initial struggle is going to be up against that Baltimore Ravens team. I love them to cover the 10 points there. Second game that I like the Broncos -4 at home against the Vegas Raiders. I think that Vegas team is coming in really with no expectations this year, and I think that Vegas team is going to be really bad. I get it. Josh Jacobs is back, but I think with Sean Payton and that Broncos offense, they're going to perform a lot better, and I think you're going to see that right out the gate. I think they beat Vegas by at least a touchdown, so love them at home minus the 4 points there. And then my last game on the docket, I like the Washington Commanders at home against the Arizona Cardinals -7. I don't think the Arizona Cardinals team is destined to lose pretty much every game at this point. I understand it's the NFL, but the Cardinals have openly basically told you that they are trying to lose football games. And I think that Commanders offense led by Sam Howell and Eric Bieniemy being there, I think they try out a lot of stuff and they find ways to put up a lot of points against that Arizona Cardinals team. So love them -7 at home as well. And those are my three for the week.
I want to give you a couple stats to back up your first pick, the Ravens. 2017 week 1, the Ravens beat the Bengals 20-0. 2018 week 1, the Ravens beat the Buffalo Bills 47-3. Remember that one? That was a fun one. 2019 week 1, the Ravens beat the Miami Dolphins 59-10. 2020 week 1, the Ravens beat your Browns 38-6. In 2022 week 1, they beat the Jets 24-9. One blemish in the last 6 years of John Harbaugh was the game in which they allowed the Raiders to come back and beat them in overtime week 1 when they played them in 2021. I really believe that John Harbaugh getting a lot of his starters action in the preseason has them ultra ready for week 1. He makes it huge to come in early and ready. I think the Ravens roll in that game, but that's not one of my picks. I'm just backing up Cottrell on his. I have 3 picks, and I feel particularly confident in all of them. What have I been telling you guys all year? Raiders are going to stink. Give me the Denver Broncos -3.5 at Mile High. I think the defense shuts down Jimmy Garoppolo. I think the Raiders look terrible. I think Sean Payton does enough to score enough points, and I think Broncos country. Let's ride. Pick number 2. What have I been telling you all offseason? Desmond, get rid of her. I hate the Atlanta Falcons. Give me the home dog, Carolina Panthers +3.5 versus the Atlanta Falcons. I'll take the Panthers to win that game. Better coach. I like Bryce Young. I like what they're going to do with that overall offense. Miles Sanders will be featured, and I don't like Desmond Ridder. And my most confident play this week is the Pittsburgh Steelers +2.5 at home versus Brock Purdy and the San Francisco 49ers. That Steelers defense led by TJ Watt, Minkah Fitzpatrick, with head coach Mike Tomlin. That offense led by Kenny Pickett, George Pickens set for a huge year. Deontay Johnson, thunder and lightning backfield. Najee Harris. I think the Pittsburgh Steelers roll in that football game, and I think Brock Purdy turns the ball over multiple times. I think it's an ugly week 1 for San Fran, and they start questioning, when do we bring Sam in? I got the Steelers +2.5. They're my picks. I go through them quick. I'm rather quick with my picks right now, but I feel confident in them. I think a 3-0 week. I think I go 3-0 this week. Start off on a good.
I'm behind you with one of the picks, so.
What? Let me ask you a question real quick, and just we're gonna move to UFC right now. But out of those 3 picks, do you guys disagree with any of them?
I think San Fran wins the game against the Steelers.
I would say if I was going to pick one that I think goes the other way, it would be San Fran because I think they're such a good football team. I think they can. I think they have the weapons to control that game regardless of what Brock Purdy does.
Okay. I love that. That's the one game I feel so good about, though.
There it is.
Okay.
There it is. Brandon, don't worry. I already told everybody. Don't worry.
Sorry I'm late, but my fantasy first round, second round picks are out this week. So I'll be drinking my woes away. I wish I was playing him this week.
Right?
I don't know.
Wouldn't that be great?
Who do you have, Cottrell?
Ken.
You got Kenny. Yeah, I have Michael Robert Lafferty, so I don't have him. Somebody's picking up a free goddamn win this week, though.
Yeah. I have somebody that doesn't like losing, so I don't know. All right, so let's move on to UFC. Let's get into UFC 293. We really only have one fight to go over in this card. I don't feel like talking about Tai Tuivasa versus Volkov for a gatekeeper matchup in the heavyweight division, something that they threw on there because there's 2 friggin' names on there and they wanted to sell you a pay-per-view. I will not be purchasing this pay-per-view. I will be pirating it or watching it somewhere. I don't really care. It's not worth it. It's a terrible card. I can't stand that UFC does this. So, like, I just want to do you a favor just at home, and we won't break down all the cards. I won't waste your time. But I want to read you the card from 5-1 for the pay-per-view. This is what you're paying $70 for, okay? You got Tyson Pedro versus Anton Turaki, Justin Tafa versus Austin Lane, Manel Cape versus Felipe dos Santos, and then Tai Tuivasa versus Alexander Volkov. That sounds like a fight night, and you're using Izzy to sell you a damn card versus Sean Strickland, which I don't think should be a fight to begin with. I'm not thrilled with UFC trying to sell this card. I'll be in Florida, though, so I won't worry about it because I can go watch it at a sports bar if I want to. I'll stop. I digress.
I will say, though,
yes, sir.
I was going to say the one thing about this card that I don't want to let Dana off the hook because he is good for throwing us one of these cards, but everything I've read has been that they tried to improve this card. A lot of fighters didn't want to go over to Australia to fight for whatever reason. So I think the UFC tried to make this card as good as good as possible. But, you know, a lot of fighters ultimately didn't want to go over there to fight. Obviously, you have the John Jones and Stipe fight coming up here shortly. Apparently, a lot of fighters are trying to hold off to be a part of that card, even if it is a part of the prelims. But with it being such a huge card, and I believe that card is going to be in New York City, a lot of people ultimately just said, no, we're good. We're not going over to Australia to fight. So I don't want to put all the onus on Dana here, because I do know fighters were turning it down, but I'm 100% behind you. This card does stink.
Yeah, like if this card wasn't in Australia, like Dana wouldn't dare put this card on if it was Vegas. Like there would absolutely be other fights on this. He's selling it because you know Australia, for lack of a better term, is his home away from home. It's going to be like a home fight for him, and Strickland's going to go in there and be the bad guy. Blah 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 blah. Like I get it. It's the same narrative over and over, but there's no way on hell on earth I would pay $70 to watch this.
Tuivasa, Australia, I get it.
Kai Kara was supposed to be on the card. I'm pretty sure he got hurt.
Yawn. Guys, let's break down Izzy versus Strickland. I think Izzy wins the fight. I'm not saying that what's the right way to put it? I'm not saying there's no chance, right? I'm done doing that with UFC. I'm done saying that there's no chance for someone to win a fight. I've said that 3 times and I've been wrong all 3 times. I said Amanda Nunes had no chance to lose to Juliana Pena. She lost. I said Valentina had no chance of losing. She lost. I said I didn't say that O'Malley had no chance, but I almost said that, and he won. I'm done saying fighters have no chance. They have punchers' chances. The only fighter that had no chance was was Carlos Barza versus Zhang Weili. There was no chance that she won that fight. You could fight that 100 times, and 100 times Zhang Weili wins that fight. But what I will say is this: I think Izzy pieces up Sean Strickland. I think he beats him in a rather lopsided decision. I think Strickland does enough to stay away from him to not get stopped. And I think Izzy wins this one on the scorecards, 49-46.
I don't think this fight goes a distance. I do agree with you. I'm not going to say Strickland doesn't have a chance. I think he has got a pretty good chin, and he's a tough dude. I mean, he's not a pushover by any means. Technically, I don't think he's anywhere near on the level of Izzy, but he's a straightforward type of guy that is kind of solid everywhere, in every kind of discipline of a fighter. I don't think he's elite anywhere, but he's good. He's solid. Like, you're gonna have to beat him. He's not a guy that's gonna go in there, probably make a fatal mistake and beat himself. That being said, I think he's have to come forward a lot. That's exactly what Izzy wants you to do. I think Izzy is by far and away the better striker. He's going to counter strike. He's going to move in and out, use his angles. I think he picks him apart. I don't think this fight goes the distance. I think Izzy probably dominates. And then just after taking a barrage of punches for the first, I would say 3-4 rounds. I think it stops. I think there's a stoppage in round 4.
So I'm going to go earlier than that. I'm going to go round 3 stoppage. I got Izzy winning this one. And I think the blueprint is, if you watch Sean Strickland fight Alex Pereira, if you're Izzy, you do the exact same thing. Clearly, you're going to be a much better kickboxer than him, and you can throw things that make Sean Strickland uncomfortable. Now, I will say Sean Strickland does have that knockout power, but that's really all you have to be threatened with Sean Strickland. Like, he's not going to be a guy that gets you to the mat and is going to try to wrestle you to death. And, if I'm going stand-up for stand-up, I'm taking Izzy against almost, pretty much anybody in the entire company. So I do think he's going to take care of business against Sean Strickland. And let's be real here. Sean Strickland wasn't even supposed to be fighting here. This is supposed to be Dricus Du Plessis' fight, but, Du Plessis got hurt, and they had to just find somebody for Adesanya to fight. And, they threw Strickland in here. So I think Izzy wins this one. I think this is, no problem at all. I will say, I think the best part about this card will be the press conference. The press conferences on Thursday, so tomorrow, are going to be absolutely hilarious because Sean Strickland is great on the mic, and I think him and Izzy are going to have some pretty funny back and forths.
I think it'll be funny. I think Strickland's a great shit talker, but you said it perfectly. I mean, the knockout that Izzy, that Pereira had versus Strickland is the blueprint. I just don't think Izzy really has that, I guess, that raw power that Alex has. And I think that this eventually just becomes a piece him up session where Israel Adesanya pieces up Strickland for 5 rounds. Just an opinion. Any other comments on the card? I get it. I don't know how much I can go into it. We talk about every UFC pay-per-view, and I'm a UFC guy. Like, I want to talk about more UFC, but I don't know what else to break down on this card. What is Control? I know you're an undercard guy. What is something on this card you're looking forward to on the undercard?
All right, let me pull up the full card here.
I have it. Do you want me to read it to you?
No, I got it here. I got to pull it up. I mean, if any fight is going to be interesting, I would say of all the undercard fights, it's got to be Justin Tafa against Austin Lane. I think Justin Tafa is a guy who is he's a knockout artist, and so again, that's nothing to write home about. But I think if you want to tune in and see someone get knocked out, I think that'll be the fight to do so. Justin Tafa, his younger brother, just had a knockout a couple of weeks ago on a card, so I think that's the one. But I mean, there's no other. There's a reason why no one else on this card is ranked outside of the co-main and the main. I will say that. Yeah.
I looked at the undercard. I'm talking about the ultra undercard, like
the early prelims.
Yeah. So I looked at the undercard, and the only fight I actually want to watch, and I'll end up watching it afterwards because I probably won't force myself to get there, is Jamie Mullarkey versus John McDessie. I think that'll be a great fight. I think both those guys will go at it it'll be a war. I think they're both like fun fighters to watch. I've watched both of them fight over the years, but they're both coming off losses. It should be it's a 155-pound fight. You should see some sparks thrown, but I think it'll be fun. I think it'll be a fun fight to watch. Makdessi and Malarkey are both guys that are fun to watch. Carlos Ulberg will be a decent fight. He's fighting against Dawan Zhang. I think that will be a good fight too. Ulberg should win the fight. He's the better fighter, but I don't know what else to talk about in this card. It's kind of embarrassing.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a good card. I mean, it's just there's no way to get around it. I hate that they're using, Izzy, who is a huge draw for them and a big name, and kind of wasting him on this card to get people to watch it. Because in all reality, it's exactly what you said. This is a fight night card, and no matter how you slice it, you can argue it all you want. I mean, you take Izzy's name away from this. This is a mediocre fight night card. It really is. So they're using the homegrown thing, the hometown thing, and obviously his drawing power. It's in Australia, so that's what they're doing. It sucks. It sucks. I think a lot of I think even the average casual fan probably really likes to watch Izzy fight. So they'll make money somehow. I mean, there'll be enough buys on this that that it'll do well financially, and Dana will just move on to the next one.
Yeah, I mean, UFC 294 should be better, right?
You would
I'm
think.
sure it will be.
I know it definitely will be better. It's the Makhachev Alvera fight. I'm looking forward to talking about that, but that doesn't happen until October. Like I gotta wait like another 6 weeks to watch a really good fight.
I will say though, they're giving us Shevchenko and Alexa Grasso. That rematch is on a fight night, so I know that's a card that they will be loading up to. I don't know when that exact date is,
but sell it, bro.
I'm talking about to watch. Good card to watch.
I get it, but 294 is going to be a lot better. Paulo Costa is going to get beat up by Hamza Chimaev. Islam's fighting Charles. It's going to be a great card. So like I'm looking forward to 294. Give me 294. Let's get through 293 and yeah. Let's get to 294. Let's get into you got it.
Which card is the Jones fight?
I think it's 296.
So that's going to be what? December? That's going to be the December one.
Oh, my John Jones?
Yeah, John Jones and Stipe. It's 95 or 96, and I think it's in New York.
Yeah, I think it's 296. I don't think it's actually 100% booked either.
No, it is. It's signed.
Okay. I haven't seen a complete release date.
It's 296.
Okay. It says 295 when I Googled it.
Oh, sorry. You're right. Yeah, you're right. 295, November 11th.
And is that in
Madison Square Garden?
Madison Square Garden. Yep. That's the fight that apparently people are trying to hold out for. Because I believe the 294 card is in Abu Dhabi, and apparently fighters don't want to fight there either. So got a lot of babies in the UFC, but I get it, different time zone and training and all that stuff, but you put your body on the line. So
I mean it's tough to pick up your whole camp and go literally halfway around the world, and it's not the best.
Well, let's get into you got to be kidding me. Cottrell starts off.
So I got a little bit of more of a fun one this week. Nobody really made me too upset, but I got a pretty impressive feat here, and I'm sure if Alex is watching, he's going to enjoy this one. So the Oregon Ducks scored 81 points this past weekend, and their mascot, their Duck, he does push-ups after every score. He racked up 546 push-ups in the span of this 3-hour football game. That is absolutely insane. If I was in his costume, my shoulders would have fell off. They would have been picking my arms up, trying to glue them back onto my body. And so, for this Duck to fully be in shape and be ready for that is absolutely incredible. Because I'm sure, you have to go through extensive training, things like that. I know they're very selective about this Duck and his responsibilities. But there is no way you ever could have been, fully prepared to do 546 push-ups in one, 3-hour span. So this week for me, that Oregon Duck. Kudos to you, my man.
Come on, you gotta be kidding me.
That's hilarious. I love that. It's a great one. Shally.
Before I go, I'm going to address Brandon's troll comment up here in the top right corner. Came at Scholastic Shally, and Scholastic Shally offered you one question that you could not answer. Obviously, it was going to be a little bit easier for Penn State to cover because they had less points to cover. I asked you why you thought that was going to be, of more of like a scientific reason other than a number. You couldn't provide an answer. And I'm still waiting for the answer. So don't come on here trolling.
He was chastised.
He was chastised because he gave me no reason. He made a silly statement. You guys want to chastise him over something? I'll give you a good one. I have this on video as well. I have this on video. Guess who he said the beginning of last year was over the hill and wasn't going to win again?
I'm ready.
Patrick Mahomes.
Oh my God.
I have that on video. Maybe I'll share that later to the page.
Brandon.
He's a liar.
Nah, bro. That's saved in Snapchat. So,
all right, so good.
Mine's a little bit serious this week, and it's a little bit preemptive because I'm very curious to see how badly the Dodgers contradict themselves on this when it's all said and done, and also how bad Rob Manfred boots this situation because I know he's going to. So Julio Urias, believe it or not, was arrested the other night for the second time for felony domestic assault against, I believe, his girlfriend. I think the thing a lot of people forget is Julio Urias was one of the first people to ever be suspended under the MLB's new domestic violence policy 4 years ago. And I think he got kind of given a free pass because it was kind of pled no contest. He got community service, and he had to do, domestic abuse training for a whole year. And he kind of got away with it in the media, per se, because he was a young kid and so forth and so on. He got 20-game suspension. Now, the only reason this is making a stink with a lot of people online is the Trevor Bauer situation. Trevor Bauer got suspended for 194 games for doing nothing illegal. I'm going to repeat that, nothing illegal. You cannot agree with what he did. I know a lot of people don't, and there's nothing wrong with that. At the end of the day, Major League Baseball suspended Trevor Bauer 194 games because they didn't approve of what he did behind closed doors in a bedroom situation in a consensual fashion. The Dodgers have yet to suspend Julio Urias. He's not even on the commissioner's exempt list yet. All they've officially come out and said is that he's not traveling with the team this week. He got released on a $50,000 bond, which is indicates that it's a serious crime. Why has he not been suspended, Rob Manfred? Why are the Dodgers not so anxious to get rid of Julio Urias? They couldn't cut bait with Trevor Bauer fast enough, even though Trevor Bauer had receipts from every single girl saying that they were asking for it or that it was consensual. They couldn't wait to get out from that $40 million contract as soon as they could. Is it because Julio Urias is only making $14 million this year? Or is it because if you lose him for the playoffs, which you're going to do, the only pitcher you have on the roster is Clayton Kershaw, who's pushing 40. So this week, I'm going to lay it more on the Dodgers right now because they haven't even suspended him yet. But I still think it's very ironic and questionable that Major League Baseball hasn't even stepped in yet. So this week for me, the Dodgers and MLB, I'll probably circle back to this in a couple weeks.
Come on, you gotta be kidding me.
All right. So I'm shocked that we didn't use it when it happened originally, but because of what just happened yesterday, it kind of brings it more to light. Jake Haener, the backup quarterback for the New Orleans Saints and quarterback from Fresno State, they drafted out of the 4th round from college. He went to Fresno State and Washington to be the backup for Derek Carr. Jake Haener had a really interesting photo shoot as the New Orleans Saints quarterback. I'm not sure if you guys have seen this photo shoot. All you have to Google it is Jake Haener Saints photo shoot. You'll see the pictures. But that's not why he gets my "you got to be kidding me." He just made the news for like a really, I guess I would say, sexually provocative photo shoot in the Saints uniform. I guess that's the right way to put it. But let's take it a step further. He just got suspended for PED use. So, like, you're having a really rough few months as being a backup quarterback for the New Orleans Saints. 4th round draft pick, now suspended 6 weeks. He might lose his spot on an NFL roster. The Saints are going to need to have a backup quarterback for the next few weeks. And, I don't understand how he's gotten himself in so many issues this early in his career, from the photo shoot to the PEDs. So you got to be kidding me this week is Jake Haener.
Come on, you gotta be kidding me.
Hold on. Did you guys see the photo shoot for this kid? Yeah. What do you? That's the video. You don't have to play. We'll upload it. But did you guys see the photo shoot for this guy, Jake Haener, when it came out? It's a little interesting.
Yeah, just weird.
A little weird.
Definitely weird. And what's funny is that I knew you guys were gonna go aboard. I knew one of you would go down Urias. I thought Bill was gonna take care of Georgia and their one of their staffers getting caught up with a DUI. So definitely want to just throw that out there. Georgia in another sticky situation involving a vehicle. They got to fix that program.
I don't know when the University of Georgia became the hotbed for street racing in the South. Like, like these people just get in cars and are like, just send it. Let's go. Like, it's crazy.
Hey, we're back-to-back national champions. We can do whatever the hell we want to.
Yeah, I guess.
Uh-oh. Brandon is calling Shally out.
It'd be great if you had some kind of proof of that other than trying to deflect and just slinging trash right now to protect yourself, because I came up with the receipt. Receipts tell no lies, brother.
Man.
Here we go.
All right, so that's all we have for show 152. Does anybody have any final comments? Cottrell, on to you first.
Got nothing.
Shally, any final comments?
Nothing. I mean, if you're a college football fan and you haven't checked out Coast to Coast yet, we will be back on Saturday morning. Me, Cottrell, and my man iBlack Alex. Got a big slate of games coming up this weekend. We're gonna go over a bunch of stuff and talk about how our favorite teams did. I think it's gonna be a little bit of a mixed bag of reviews across the board. I think Alex probably has the most to be happy about, but Saturday morning, 10 o'clock, we will be there live. So come check us out.
Definitely check out Sideline to Sideline.
Wrong show.
I have something a little prepared that's a little personal, and it probably won't matter for 70% of listeners of Wire2Wire. But last night we accomplished something, and I wanted to put this out there. And we accomplished something last night that I really am just thrilled to do with the group of guys that we had. Shally's laughing because I think he knows where I'm going, but I'm not going anywhere disrespectful to anyone. What I will say is this. I'll do that trade, by the way. Send it, Brandon. He said Kelsey and Cup for Mixon. I'm not trading back. But last night, our guy Greg popped his calf muscle in 2 different places. Had to be carried off the field. Brett Anker pulled his hamstring. Couldn't finish the game. We had it was a hot weather day, and we had a lot of really gutsy performances. And I kind of want to shout out the whole team, family, and there was a lot of talk, and it's from everybody. It's logical from smart people to play softball, of not batting everybody or rotating things, and just not the way I wanted to do it. Not with this group we have. We don't cut friends. We don't sit them. We don't get to the show and decide who's going to play softball or not. We all pay to play. We're all part of a team, all for one for all, cheesy as it sounds. I couldn't be happier about being able to win with the group of guys that we got to win with last night. Look, we're not the best team. There's no doubt about that, right? Like if we play some of these teams 10 times, we're going to lose 9. We already have. We've got destroyed. 2 weeks prior to our playoff win, we lost 25-5 to one of those teams. We're not the best team, but it's why you play the games, right? And we got to show up as the 6th seed and play Cinderella for a couple weeks and win a game versus 2 of the best teams in softball America, and then play one of the best teams last night, which absolutely played their asses off, smoked the ball over the field. So just wanted to shout out the guys from Wire2Wire softball league, softball team, and Shally pitched his ass off. 4 out of 5 playoff games that we had, Shally was on the hump. His arm must be killing him today. And he hit the crap out of the ball last night. I mean, Shally will tell you by his own admission that he hasn't had the best hitting season that he's had in a while. But I'll tell you what, when the lights were bright and when the moments mattered, my man Shally showed up. So shout out to Shally. Shout out to the whole Wire2Wire softball team. Greg, I hope you feel better, man. I know your calf is bothering you. You can barely walk today. So appreciate everybody. And special shout out to Jacob, man. The guy hit the crap out of the ball the whole night and made
Jacob
one of the best
had
catches.
Jacob, that is, I mean, if you're going to talk about lights being the brightest, which is ironic because we're talking about Jacob, and that's more of an inside joke with the team. But Jacob showed up last night, so I will say that is by far the best I've ever seen Jacob play, and he did it for 3 games. To play 3 games in that heat in left field and run around all night long is not an easy feat. Like Gene just said, we lost our left center fielder, and then one of our backup outfielders to leg issues. He was drenched and absolutely covered in dirt. Ran as hard as he could every time he was getting forced out at second and slid. Jacob balled out last night, so I'm proud of Jacob.
I texted that man to the game. I'm like, bro, you played best softball I ever seen. Probably batted 800 for the night too. I think he only got out twice.
I only got out a couple times.
But just wanted to take a second to shout out the team, shout out the group. No slander toward anybody. Have all the respect in the world for every other team in the league. We know we're not the best team. We know it. It's okay. It was okay to finish one season on top, though. So I'm Wire2Wire Gene, the NFL genius. That's Scholastic Shally. That's College Cottrell. And we are signing out.